Hey adventurers, so today is going to be my top 10 self-published books, my list of 10 of my favorite books that I've read that have been self-published. Self-published or indie published, I'm not entirely, because I haven't looked really into what the difference between those two things is, I'm not entirely sure what it is yet, but that doesn't really matter, especially not for this video. The point is, these are 10 of the books that I have read that I really like. And there's a couple ways that I'm going to cheat. One of them is an honorable mention, and I will, when I get there, I'll talk about why I wanted to cheat and how I wanted to cheat for that one. But then the other one is some of these are series that I have read more than the first book of. And so if I have read the complete series up to the point, if I'm caught up on the series, that's how I'm supposed to word that, then all the books in the series will be included in this. But anyways, so they are in no particular order other than that the first 6 of them are ones that I physically own, and then the last 4 I don't physically own. So that's the order that I put them in. I did actually put this first one, I put number 1 at place 1 because it's the one that I've read the most times of these books, and is that true? Yeah, that's true. That is true. Anyways, it's the one that I've read the most times, and it is the one that I actually do think is probably my favorite of these top 10. So anyways, that's alright. My honorable mention, I guess, will be the one that you guys have to get excited for. So number 1 is Dawn of Wonder by Jonathan Renshaw. So this is one that I've talked in several videos about, and it's just one of my favorite books of all time, even if you include all the traditionally published books that I've read. This is one of the ones that I just have amazing memories of reading for the first time, and every time I think back on this book, what I remember so much about it is how clearly I can see the descriptions of the world, how well I know this world, how well I can visualize the world. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's just one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite books. It's fairly chunky, 709 pages with the author's note. So is it 710 then? 710 with the author's note. So it's fairly chunky, but it's really, really good. And favorite book of these self-published that I have on here. The next one that I have is The Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham. This is one that I read recently, and it was just so much fun. The story, it's a YA portal fantasy type thing, and just the way that the story works in this book is so much fun. And I've mentioned that I had a couple minor, very, very minor complaints, or not complaints isn't the word that I've used, they were nitpicks. That's the word that I used. A few minor nitpicks regarding this book. One of them is the only one that I can remember, and it just has to do with the way that a trope is presented. Other than that, the other 2, I can't actually remember what the nitpicks were anymore, so that tells you how important they were. Other than that, though, the story was just fantastic. It read super quickly, and it was just very, very fun book. Next one I have is Deathless Beast by Andrew D. Meredith, or actually the Collation Saga as a whole, because this is volume 1 and Bone Shroud is volume 2. I don't actually physically own Bone Shroud, so I can't hold it up as well, but I have read both of them, and they're both amazing. Andrew D. Meredith is a super nice guy as well, and I've really enjoyed reading his books. And he's got another series, the Needle and Leaf series, with Thrice and Fourscore are the 2 books out in that one, and I haven't read those ones yet, so I'm looking forward to getting to read those. But Deathless Beast, just the way that you're just immersed in the world, and the way that you have to kind of travel around, because that's what the characters are doing, and you're just following the characters as they travel around from one place to the next to do the next part of the task that they've been assigned, or whatever it might be. But also the explorations of faith in this series is something, maybe I shouldn't say the explorations, maybe I should say the presentation of faith in this book or the series is one that I really, really appreciate, and seeing how it's done. Next one, trying to move through these fairly quickly. The next one that I've got is More Than a Gunslinger by J.R. Carroll. This is a standalone novel set in his More Than Human universe, and this is a Western, kind of like an American Western type thing, but it's also heavily ties in with like the American Tall Tales in many ways, and just a very fast-paced, very action-heavy novel. But it was really fun to read, or I listened to it, and it was a really fun book, and I was impressed because didn't know what to expect from it, and I just had a lot of fun with it. I have read his other book, More Than a Vampire, and I didn't enjoy that one as much, but I'll eventually have a review for that one, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I didn't enjoy that one quite as much, but I did really, really enjoy More Than a Gunslinger, and I own this one physically. Let's see, the next one on the list is Talon Guest by Charles McGarry. This is Bookish Chaz's book, and this is, I've talked about this one before, I've reviewed it before, and this is a collection of short stories that have a through line of being told by the same character, by one character. I think it's just called The Traveler in this book. I might be wrong about that. Yeah, The Traveler. And he's telling these stories to Talon, the dragon, and it's kind of got a very Scheherazade-esque setup, and that's kind of what it, or what is it, 1001 Nights, that same thing, where he has to tell a story in order to survive, type thing. And I really enjoyed, I'm pretty sure I enjoyed every single story in this book, some significantly more than others, but it was just really fun, and it was really cool to see what Charles McGarry could do as a writer. And then we will continue on. The next one I have is Gerzel by I Anonymous, and actually The Wars of Wrath is the series, and I have read the 2 books that are out so far in this series, which book 1 is Gerzel and book 2 is Baden Hill, and I don't actually own Baden Hill as of yet. I will get that eventually, but I do have Gerzel. This is an Arthurian fantasy, historical fantasy as well. It takes elements of history and takes elements of the Arthurian mythos and ties them together into a narrative, into an overarching narrative that involves Gerzel, this big dragon that you see the eye of on the front. And it's just very fun. I suspected I'd like it because I knew that there was going to be a lot of historical accuracy or historical tie-ins, but a lot of Arthurian tie-ins as well, and I just really like the Arthurian aspect of this as well. Baden Hill I've also read, as I mentioned, and that one actually focuses more on the Arthurian stuff than Gerzel does, and I really like that as well, but I don't own it physically yet, so I can't hold it up. Then we are out of the ones that I physically own. So, that I physically own and have read, I should phrase it that way. The next one I have is A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdallah. This is one that I already thought the cover, I'll have a picture of the cover here. Oh, that doesn't need to be up anymore. Oh well. I'll have a picture of the cover up there, but the cover caught my eye. I really thought the cover was very pretty, and then I kept thinking about it, kept hearing people talk about it, and then I heard the author mention that it has griffins, and I was like, oh, that's all I needed to know. Now I want to read it for sure. And so I finally did get to read it, and I absolutely loved it. It was again, it had some portrayals and explorations of faith in it that I really appreciated seeing the way that they were done. And so that's part of what I really liked about it. But I also just thought that the story was really interesting and the world was really interesting. Book 1 didn't have quite as many griffins in it as I wanted it to, but I think book 2 will. And the prequel, Prelude to Ashes, which I haven't read yet, and I haven't read book 2, which is The Shade of Madness. I haven't finished the prequel, and I haven't read the sequel yet. But I know that both of those will have more griffins in them. So that's what I'm going to end with that one. The next one I have on this list is Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering. I am saying the names, pretty sure. I think I've successfully said the names of all the authors so far. Anyways, Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering. This is one that I just finished recently, as of the time of filming this, which is the 15th? The 15th of July. And so Heliotrope is one that I just finished. It was very nice. It was a lot of very just almost atmospheric, almost cozy fantasy, but then it very much wasn't. It was very much epic fantasy at that once you got into the story. But it started out with just an old, not old, he's like 45, stonemason, but he was a very, very good warrior, and he's no longer doing that. He's now doing stonemasonry and like murals, or not murals, what's the mosaics, that's the word I'm looking for. He's doing like mosaics and stuff, and you start out and he's just building this mosaic, and you're just like, I could literally sit here and read the entire book about him building this mosaics, and it would be great, and I enjoy it so much. That's not what the story ended up being, but there's a lot of stuff that in this story that I really ended up loving. One of the things that I really liked about it is the There's a trope, and I don't know what the name of this trope is. I can just describe it, and it's when a character or a set of characters comes to a place, and the place just seems really wonderful and idyllic. I don't know how that word is pronounced. And it just seems perfect, almost too good to be true, and that's because it is too good to be true. You find out that there's this dark secret that is actually keeping these people from leaving that place, and I love that trope so much. That's not the entire book, that's a portion of the book, and it was just seeing that story unfold and seeing that, like, we got to that trope, I'm like, is this what it's gonna be? And it just made me really happy. But there's a lot of stuff like that in this book that just, it played with tropes and did them really well. Lots of things that I was there any tropes that I disliked? I don't think there was any tropes in this book that I really disliked. There was a bit of a wise old mentor to it, a twist on that as well. There was also a bit of obviously the washed up retired warrior having to get back into it and learn to fight again and stuff, or not learn to fight again, but to rediscover those abilities, get good again type thing. And a lot of stuff for me to really enjoy in that book as well. The next one I have is Becoming a Druid, or the Protectors of Brittany series. I have read the 3 books that are out in this. Book 1 is Becoming a Druid, book 1.5 is Sins and Sorrows, which is a collection of short stories set in the world of the Protectors of Brittany series. And then book 2 is To Speak with Elders. I've really enjoyed this series. Obviously, title of the first one is Becoming a Druid, and so you can tell, okay, this is going to be a series about druids, which is super cool. So it's very Celtic inspired, very druid heavy, and lots of stuff with that. Lots of the primary magic system of this series is animorphing, being able to turn into another animal, or into an animal, and go from there. And there's just a lot of really cool uses of that, and it's something that I really love to see, and it's just a fun story. Grommy is a little bit naive and not the smartest character at all times, but it makes for a compelling story because he thinks that he's so smart and so hot and everything, and he's really just not all that he thinks he is. And it's great, but it leads to an interesting story being told. And so I've really enjoyed reading those ones as well. And the 10th book that I have on this list is Digitarum by Derek Bailey. This is one that I was sent the audiobook for, and have I reviewed it yet? I don't remember if I've reviewed it or not yet, but if I haven't, it will be reviewed fairly soon. But it's one that I just really enjoyed. It was very different than anything that I was expecting it to be. I didn't know what to expect from it, but actually it spanned a whole lot of time in terms of societal advancement. It started from basically it starts out with these 5 characters appearing through a portal and basically said, build. Create a world, and so they're basically, these 5 gods have to create a world and build it up, and then it takes you from the creation of this world all the way to the final battle of this world, and how this universe closes out its story. And it's just so well done, and it was so fun, and it felt a lot like a video game in many ways, and there's reasons for that it felt like that. Obviously the writer wrote it to feel like that, but it's just like I could envision how this story was being told. It felt like Civilization type thing, like that type of video game, and it was just really fun book to read. And so that is the 10th one on my list, basically. So here's one of the ways that I cheated with this series, with this top 10 list. Those are basically all the books that I have read, all the self-published books I've read, because some of them are series and have 2 or 3 books in the series. They count, and I just made it fit. There's actually one other series that I didn't mention that's not on this list, and that is the Lawful Times by Daniel B. Green, as I didn't put those on these because I don't feel like they are my top 10 favorites, so they're not on this list. But I did mention them anyways, so I guess they get a mention. So I guess, what's that, an honorable mention? Not really, because my honorable mention is saved for a different one, and the reason why I saved it for this one, I initially had it on here, but then I was like, but I want to put Digitarum on this list too. And so I had to bump it off the list and make it an honorable mention, in that it is not actually fantasy, but it is self-published, And since everything else has been fantasy, I'd put it in my honorable mention list, and that is Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker by Patricia Meredith. This is the wife of Andrew D. Meredith, and an amazing author in her own right. This book was so good. It's a historical murder mystery. Mystery, maybe not specifically murder. It is a murder mystery, but it's a historical mystery set in Spokane, Washington, and it just was exactly what I wanted it to be. There's one of the main characters, Archie, is just one of my favorite characters that I've read in a long time, and I don't know, I really love this book, and I haven't continued on with the series yet. There's 2 more books out in the series, I think, so far, and I'm looking forward to them. It's with the historical notes and the acknowledgments and about the author. It is 334 pages, but the audiobook is fantastic. The narrator does a really good job with the audiobook, and just the story being told, it's a little bit dark, it's a little bit gruesome at times, but overall it's just a really good story. So those are my top 10 self-pub books. I guess I'll do this one as well. I'm currently reading, at the time of filming, Seekers, The Winds of Change by Troy Knowlton, and it would have been on this list if I'd have finished it, but I haven't finished it yet. So, oh well, I guess I'll have to do another one of these at some point. Anyways, that is this video. Basically all the self-published books I have read, so like it's just one big cheating video, and it's great. I'm okay with it. Lots more self-published that I already own, and that I will be reading, and that I want to read. It's just, I haven't read it yet. I'm a slow reader. It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. So thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay well.